So the book that I read was called Eight Men Out, and this is about the scandal that occurred with the White Sox in the 1919 World Series. And this was written by Elliot Asinoff, I believe that's how you say it. And it was basically a detailed reconstruction of the arguable scandal of the White Sox during their World Series appearance. Um, and this is Asinoff's one of his most famous books. Is kind of what is he known for, and he actually played first baseman in the minor leagues, so he has a little bit of background in baseball. And he also served in World War II in the Army in the Aleutian Islands, and the book was originally published in 1963, which was 50 years after this scandal hit the headlines. And then they eventually made a movie in 1988, which documented the scandal as well. So basically, what the book was about was um, it was kind of about how the White Sox, a few players were bribed by outside gamblers and bettors to try so they can try and gamble and win money off of them. And so these players really there was kind of some controversy within the organization that kind of really started this scandal. So the coach really didn't treat his players fairly. Took a lot of money from them, paid bare minimum, and stuff like that. So they already had kind of a chip on their shoulder in terms of the players not really respecting the coach. And then this further led to why they didn't really care about throwing the game as long as, or the World Series, as long as they got paid. And so that's kind of where the scandal began and started. And so a lot of these players, not every single one of these players, committed this scandal. And I keep doing this because they actually were found not guilty. There wasn't sufficient evidence in the end. But this book kind of goes into, yeah, they were cheating, and there's a lot of firsthand accounts within the book that there's no question that they cheated, and they gambled illegally, I guess you could say. But questioning began kind of after the first game in terms of the scandal, because the White Sox were arguably one of the best teams in the league, and they were playing the Cincinnati Reds, but and originally in the regular season, the White Sox beat the Cincinnati Reds pretty easily, and so people were kind of off as to why the White Sox were losing the first game. So they ended up losing the first game in the series, and then come around the second game of the series, and they also lose that. And then the third, the White Sox, came together and said, "Hey, we kind of gotta act like nothing's going on," because a lot of suspicions grew. So they actually ended up winning the third game just to kind of make it seem like nothing was really going on, even though something was kind of going on. And so throughout the entire series, the Cincinnati Reds won 5 games to the 3 games that the White Sox won. And about a year later, the eight players involved on the White Sox were put on trial. In the end, the 8 players, like I said, were found not guilty due to the lack of evidence. But kind of overall, I'd say my favorite part of this book would be kind of just the information it gives, because I've never heard of this in my life, and I'm a pretty big sports fan, so it was kind of interesting to learn about this, because if this guy didn't write this book 50 years after this happened, I mean, I don't think I would know that this even happened. And I think it's crazy that it took 50 years for this story to kind of come out, and so generations like mine can kind of learn and understand what happened in the past. And then I'd say, for a personal opinion on a topic that I'd change, after reading this book. I would say they could have done a better job, I would say, in terms of, sequential order of the book. I kind of got confused sometimes reading the book, just because like it kind of bounced from person to person, and I don't know, I had trouble following along with that. But other than that, I think the book was put together pretty well. And then I would say, if I could add a chapter to this book, I'd probably add a chapter on probably where these guys are at today, where their lives kind of led them. I know they're probably deceased by now, but I'd like to know like what happened in the future, like what ended up coming to be of them, if they, stayed playing baseball and were respected, or if they were just cut out of the sports world altogether and had to start a new life somewhere.